Good morning. It's time for the Mike Hewitt Show. Brought to you by Renegade River and Spring Lake. And here's your host, Mike Hewitt.
Welcome and good morning. Listen, we've got a pretty busy morning going on again today. Matt Wiedenhoff has joined us in the studio. Welcome back, Matt.
Good morning, Mike.
And with Matt and I is Russ Gabel. Am I saying your name right?
You are.
And what's the name of your organization, Russ?
Our organization is called Freewater Experience.
Okay. And tell us a little. You found yourself in the middle of a controversy lately. But before we get to that, let's kind of build up a little bit. Tell me what does your organization do?
Okay. We established Freewater Experience in 2009, and our goal was to use the mediums of hunting, fishing, camping, and outdoor activities to provide opportunities to mentor kids, to help kids, to counsel kids through issues and challenges that they go through in life. We also wanted to provide, just from my hunting and fishing background, I wanted to provide an opportunity for families that couldn't afford an expensive charter boat or anything in Grand Haven to be able to get on the water for free. And that's where Freewater, the title, initially came from. That's how our organization established. We've grown to much more over these last 5 years.
How do you listen? I've owned a boat, and there's nothing free about a boat.
No, no, there is not.
That's the hole in the water, you put money in, and all the rest of the cliches. Is this your boat? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, I actually have a small 17-foot boat, and we take people out on it. Our expenses are covered by a very small and faithful group of donors that donate monthly to our program and our organization.
Is your organization faith-based?
Our organization started off because of my faith and my compassion to help people. Okay. So in that sense, Freewater Experience is faith-based.
Are you evangelical?
To a degree. We have offered programs in the past that involve mentoring for kids if they wanted to get into some of our more faith-based content. I do speaking at events for churches and outdoor banquets and things like that, and per request, I can have more or less faith content in those talks. So we have a faith-type aspect to our program, and that's definitely safe to say.
Who are you reaching out to in the community specifically?
In our community currently, with our current programming, we're really looking at students. Okay. Students go through a lot of challenges.
Elementary, junior high, high school. What?
Right now, we've kind of settled on middle school, and then we're building our program up from there.
Okay. How's that been working so far?
We launched our first Freewater Club last spring in April. Okay.
And you're from the Grand Haven community, is that right?
Yes, I am. I've served in the community as a youth pastor at a church in Grand Haven, and I've moved here in '98. So Grand Haven is my home. But your capacity in this group that you're describing to us this morning, you're not a pastor in that group. I don't think you are a practicing pastor, are you? No. You know, the irony in my titling is I'm actually not a pastor, and I'm not ordained in any church. In fact, in my own church, my status as an employee isn't even high enough that I could preach on a Sunday morning.
Okay, folks, let me bring you up to date and tell you why we're having this conversation this morning, if I might. Folks that have been following this show or following the Grand Haven Tribune and a number of other news outlets have been talking for quite some time now about a battle going on against the Dewey Hill Cross in Grand Haven. There's a couple people that have reached out to some, what I would say are uber left-wing organizations out of Washington, D.C., for some legal support using the First Amendment. We talked about this last week, using the First Amendment as separation of church and state. And listen, just a little inset. I've read the Constitution word for word. I've read the First Amendment on the air and the 10th Amendment on the air. I've done that because it's important for everyone to understand. If you do a person on the street interview, by the way, the vast bulk of the people think that separation of church and state are words that are in the Constitution. They're not. Okay. Mm-hmm. The wall of separation is where that terminology was built from. That was a letter written by Thomas Jefferson in 1802. Thomas Jefferson was in France when the Constitution was being drafted and ratified. I say that because I think it's a really dangerous, slippery slope to start looking up founders' letters, especially founders that weren't involved in the Constitution building, to say, let's use that as something we can build all of our legislative follow through on and our interpretation of the Constitution. And listen, by the way, as a gun shop owner, I always look to see where's the ACLU on my Second Amendment rights, and where are these uber left groups to defend the rest of the Constitution, and how come we never read any of Patrick Henry's letters to use them as guiding posts for what was really intended in the Constitution? I say that, folks, because these things are all important when we're trying to understand where we're at. The Constitution provides that if there's something in, you always hear it's an old document and, times have changed. But listen, it's not an old document. It provides for a remedy to change it if we don't like it. Okay, but we can't just ignore it. That's just such a dangerous, I hate to use the sensational term, but it's such a Naziist way of looking at how to approach law. The Constitution's really, really specific in who it restricts. I say that because you're getting tied in with the Dewey Hill Cross deal, both your organization and the folks that are supporting the Dewey Hill Cross being there, both are under attack using the First Amendment as a mechanism or a tool to beat you up with. Is that a true statement?
That's absolutely true.
Okay, so tell me, how did you get dragged into this fight? What was the initial shot across your bow to say we're at war with you?
Okay, we have two clubs that exist in two of the middle schools, one in Fruitport and one in Grand Haven, and in cooperation with the school districts, we have created a club setting that has left the religious piece out of it. We don't pray, we don't read scripture, we don't do any religious content in our club. What we do is we teach character, things like courage, integrity, honesty. We tackle issues like bullying, peer pressure, depression. We do games, and we give our kids opportunity to serve. And in that setting, the first shot across the bow was an email sent by an organization, an activist organization in Grand Haven, the same group involved with the Dewey Hill issue, to the two schools, saying that that I'm an evangelistic pastor proselytizing students.
Okay,
they're in this club.
We're going to hold that thought. We're going to take a phone call. Put us through. Welcome to the Mike Hewitt Show. You're on the air.
Good morning.
Good morning. Your name is Jeff, right?
Yes, sir. Good morning, Russ. It's Jeff.
Good morning.
Jeff, how can we help you?
Well, I am calling in support of Russ and the Freewater experience. My name is Jeff Bruno. I'm calling you from Mesa, Arizona. I'm a former resident of Grand Haven, born and raised. I know the city well. And I also am spearheading the Keep the Dewey Hill Cross campaign in Grand Haven.
Jeff, help me understand what your relationship currently is to that cross from as far away as Arizona.
My dad helped put that cross up.
Back in what year was that, Jeff?
That was in the early 60s.
Okay, so I've got a picture on my Facebook page that shows it. It shows it standing and absolutely beautiful, and looks like it was early spring of probably even still winter, actually, 1962. So at that point, it was a proud thing that it looked like it had been there, to your point, for just a little while.
Yes.
So it's about the same age as me. And it's in way better shape, by the way.
That's right. That's right. And the reason for my call, and the reason that we're supporting Russ and the Freewater clubs, because let's not lose the fact that this is not the Freewater experience, that is a different organization.
Right.
I don't want to say different organization, but a different mindset. And the reason that I'm here now is because we have some insight on this group, this Merca, whatever they call themselves, and Remove the Cross, and all the people involved. The way that they got Russ tied up into this and the school system is through mistruths, lies, and all of the above. They don't tell the full truth. They take things and twist things out of proportion to their liking. They've done that with us. They're doing that with him now. This is their method of operation. This is how they do things.
Tell me this, though, Jeff. Sometimes it's helpful for folks to get a glimpse of a total picture in history. Right now, when we see it as a First Amendment dispute or debate over over Christianity. Frankly, it's an attack on faith. Now
Yeah.
but that argument aside for a minute, when your father was involved in putting it up, wasn't there a motivation that didn't have anything to do necessarily with a cross and with Christianity? But weren't we honoring somebody else with that?
Well, it's funny you say that, Mike. I was in the newspaper in the Grand Haven Tribune when this first started, front page.
Right.
Some friends of mine back home sent me a copy of the paper. Now, I currently reside with my 92-year-old mother who has Alzheimer's. She cannot remember what she had for breakfast 2 hours later.
Right.
She can't remember if she took her pills 15 minutes ago. But I'll tell you what, she can darn sure remember 40 years ago.
Right.
She can tell you exactly what your mother was wearing at the VFW during whatever dance they had down there that night. She can remember that. She saw that paper and she read the article. She took her glasses off and set the paper down, and she looked at me and she says, "Jeff, come over here and sit down a minute. I need to talk to you." Now, that made
I
me
like this
nervous
lady
because
already.
I hadn't heard that tone of voice in years.
Right.
I wanted to run for the hills. I thought I was in trouble.
You're grounded, Jeff.
Yes. 53 years old, and I'm grounded. That's right. And so I went and sat next to her, and she picked up a paper, and she held it up, and she said, "Let me tell you something about that cross." And I said, "Okay, what do you remember about that cross?" And I'm thinking in my mind, she has no memory. This is going to be a story that has no meaning, no bearing, but I'll just listen to it to appease her.
Sure.
She started going into it, and she described the days that Doc Creason, Pastor Klagus, Mr. Ringelberg, my dad, all of them were in our basement drinking little shots of whiskey and making their plans. Those men down in the basement making their plans. They would alternate between houses. One night it was Doc Creason's house. One night it was our house. And that cross had absolutely nothing to do with religion, had nothing to do with Christianity, had nothing to do as a religious symbol, nothing. It had to do with veterans, families, and hope for this area. If you think back to the time of our lives that we were in back in the early 60s, Vietnam, the Cold War, the standoff with Russia.
You know what, Jeff? Just to stop you for a second, folks that are in the next generation up after yours and mine, they don't have the memory of being in the cradling yourself down in a hallway to do the attacks from the Cold War era or the routines of hiding underneath your desk. It was
right.
I bring that up because to your point, it was a very, very different time in America.
It was. Mm-hmm. You remember sitting in school? I remember it in St. John's Lutheran School as a little kid, first, second, third grade, like that. And all of a sudden, the air raid sirens would go off in Grand Haven.
Sure.
And the teacher would run into the closet and grab a helmet and put it on. And everybody, okay,
right.
This is a drill.
Right.
This is your civil defense drill. What do you do? And we'd all huddle up under desks or go into closets, things like that.
Right.
It was like the whole city wiped off the face of the earth for 3 minutes.
So those guys got together to say, how can we build some symbol of hope?
Yes, and
okay.
That's exactly what it was.
Right.
If you look, at the time that we were in, you look at Western Michigan, the tri-state area, whatever you want to call it. We took a heck of a hit with boys and girls in Vietnam, and I say boys and girls because they were kids,
right?
Just like it is today. So that cross was more of a sign of hope,
right,
for the community, for veterans. But I really don't want to sway away from the main reason for this show today, the Freewater Club. This is really out in left field, and these are two different complete issues. The Dewey Hill and the Freewater Club.
They are
the
different
Freewater
issues.
Club is being attacked.
Yeah, they are.
No reason.
Jeff, they are different issues, but not entirely, because this group that we're talking about, they're after any form of symbolization of whether it's Christianity. To me, it looks like they're attacking organized faith. I know there's a park down south of where I live, down south of Grand Haven, that's had a sign that was been there so long it had mold and mildew growing over it, that they launched an attack to get that thing removed. And it's of course this the looks like the ringleader, for lack of better terms, has got a history in Hawaii of taking the same approach to the community. But I got to tell you, I think he's tied into something in West Michigan, because there's a lot of folks here that are not going to stand down. West Michigan is clearly not as progressive as the state of Hawaii is. It's a whole different animal. I think he'll probably relish in the battle, because I think that's the kind of the kind of personality that would cause these types of things. But and in the attention is why I'm not going to have his name said on my show. But it's just a fascinating thing that somebody would have such a cold heart that they'd want to go in and do this. But listen to both of your points. Yesterday, I own a gun shop, just to let everyone know where I stand in this battle. And when I look at the things that Russ does with young people, it sounded like he was doing a commercial for my shop, because those are the exact products and services that my shop does. And I'm a corporation. It is a for-profit company. But listen, we also outreach to the local youth rifle club. By the way, there is a local youth rifle club. And, people, there's still one of those left. Yeah, it's still America in some places. Yeah, it's allowed. But I think it's the only one left in the state of Michigan. Wow. The point is that there is still a backbone to America, and that's what some of these debates really are about. I remember as a young person, I was born and raised on the other side of the state. I had a lot of health issues, so we'd go from the Rochester, Pontiac area down to Detroit, to the hospital, the only one that could deal with my issues. And on the way down there, we went through Southfield and some other communities that were heavily Jewish communities. And I remember seeing synagogues. I remember seeing signs up on billboards and other form of signage and markings that represented the Jewish faith. And this is going to shock you, but my head didn't spin around. My car didn't explode. I wasn't offended. I didn't call a lawyer. It was just, I thought, jeepers, I'm in a Jewish community. What a bunch of nice people when you pull over and get out and do business. They were good people, and they have a different faith, and I'm okay with that. It didn't attack my faith. But listen, Jeff, do me a favor. Stay on, because I think that we're all going to hop into this conversation a little bit deeper, but we've got to take a break. So don't go nowhere, and all four will be right back, folks.
This is News Talk 1090 WKBZ.
Renegade River in Spring Lake wants to buy your used handguns and hunting guns. Renegade River, your hunting, camping, and survival store. Stop in and check out their new and used firearms, sporting goods, Army and Navy supplies, and survival gear. Downtown Spring Lake, next to the police station. Be a survivor, not a statistic. Renegade River in Spring Lake has new and used handguns, hunting guns, sporting goods, and survival gear. Protect your rights and your freedom. Ask about their CPL classes. Renegade River, next to the police station in downtown Spring Lake.
The Talk of Muskegon. News Talk 1090 WKBZ.
We do have a full studio. We've got Matt Wiedentoft with us. We've got Russ Gabel, who is the director, is that right,
Yep.
of Freewater Experience, and Jeff from Arizona is on the line with us. But listen, this show is a capitalist-driven show, so before I dive in, let me mention Polano Consulting. That is one of our sponsors. If you've got a small business and you're looking for some direction, some help, and some general outreach hints, you may want to go to polanoconsulting.com, because those folks can help you. They helped me. So listen, when we went to break, we were talking about my experience driving through a Jewish community and the fact that my head didn't explode. We've become one of the most offended societies in American history. honest, I don't get it. Both of the two families that were initially involved in complaining over the cross don't live in the community. And you go, they got to drive 20 miles out of their way to be offended. I just find that fascinating. I really do, especially when I contrast it to what the U.S. Constitution actually says, because it says something very, very different than what we're being led to believe. But listen, before we get down that path, and I'll get out of my rant about how I can't stand the ACLU and all that, tell me, a little bit about what's going on. Give me more information, Russ.
Okay, so we have two clubs we have a club in each of two middle schools in the area, in Freeport Middle School and at White Pines Intermediate School in Grand Haven, Michigan. And we have worked with the school to produce a club under strict coherence with school guidelines as far as what we can and can't promote and say in the club. So we teach, we play games. We want to make the club fun for kids.
Yep.
We do teaching we try and build character. We tell stories of other students and things that they've done, and stories that build character, like courage, integrity, honesty, and a service-mindedness in the community.
Oh, you mean the underpinnings of America. That's what you really just said.
Is that what I just described? That's amazing.
Folks, listen, if you want to call and agree or disagree or ask a question, the show phone number is 231-830-3109. Yeah, Russ, that's what I heard you say. If we pull out those underpinnings, if we stop using those as our foundation, we'll be in free fall.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
I believe that that's what some folks would like to see us be in.
Well, and it's why we work so hard to be able to instill those characters and traits in the kids that we work with. We give them opportunities to serve in their school and community, and that's what has fallen under attack.
Okay, we're going to take another phone call, so stay with that thought.
You bet.
Is it Gina?
It is, yes.
Welcome to the Mike Hewitt Show.
Thanks.
How can we help you, Gina? How are you?
Good, how are you?
Very nice. How can we help you?
I just wanted to make a comment. First off, this is the first time I've ever heard of Russ's program.
Okay.
And I think it sounds like an awesome program for the youth in the area. And putting the faith option aside, it's a shame that it has to come down to it. Basically, it's hurting the children.
Right.
It's wrong. And the fact of the matter is that these people, and I use the term people very loosely because they're monsters, are taking these programs away from kids that have done nothing. And they're taking these programs and these good things away from these children that are learning not even things about faith, but just things about life and how to deal with things and situations and experiences. And not to mention, it gets them off of the computer, gets them off of the internet, gets them off of the video games, and gets them doing something good.
Gina?
Yeah.
Did you mention video games again? Did you call in about the video games a couple weeks ago?
Yes, I did.
Well, let me ask you a question. From what you're hearing so far, do you really see this as a faith-based club or just about a realization of teaching people how to be, from what he said?
To be honest with you, I see it more as not being a faith-based club. I see it more as teaching people how to, teaching people or individuals different strengths or how to incorporate.
To me, I'll say to both of you, to me, it helps to teach critical thinking. It builds foundation, and without having critical thinking capacity, without having a foundation, you end up being a lever puller or a button pusher. And I say that, listen, respectfully, but if you really want to have opportunity in your future, you want to be able to have these types of things in your community. And listen, I'm not being shrill when I say this, but if we want to see what absence of these look like, we only need to look at inner city LA. Now, Ferguson, let me drop a bomb. That's the reality of this, is being absent of those things that we're talking about leaves it in a community that's wanton and without opportunity. Gina, thank you very much for calling in.
Yep. One point I want to make about this I think is cool. This is an offering to kids. We offer this during lunchtime. During lunchtime, they can choose to go out on a playground. They can play dodgeball. They can kick a football. They can sit and talk with friends. But we have in these two schools 240 students who choose to take their free lunchtime, and rather than play games or play dodgeball, they choose to come to our to our meeting space
Okay.
and have these values instilled in them. And these kids want to make a difference. These kids are the ones who packed up 140 gift bags for teachers and gave them to them last year to say, we appreciate you guys. Even the lunch ladies and the cooks in the kitchen, they gave these to these people. These are the kids that threw a pizza party for the special ed students in White Pines Middle School. And our 70 kids at the time met their 80 kids and had 3 lunchtimes full of pizza and fun that class normally doesn't have.
Folks, listen, we're going to be back next Wednesday at 9 a.m. And in the meantime, you can listen to us again at iHeartRadio.com tonight at 11. Have a great week. We'll see you then.
Be a survivor, not a statistic. Renegade River and Spring Lake has new and used handguns, hunting guns, sporting goods, and survival gear. Protect your rights and your freedom. Ask about their CPL classes. Renegade River, next to the police station in downtown Spring Lake.